So we are moving from Rabbi Hyman to Professor Hyman, which is a pleasure. I teach at Tarbut v'Torah. I teach Jewish studies and theology, but the seminary has a degree in material art, Jewish art and material culture. And so when I went to the seminary, I got a joint degree at Columbia studying art history. My specialty was, you're going to laugh, but erotic marginalia in the Kaufman Mishneh Torah. Marginalia. They were outside on the boundaries of the Kaufman Mishneh Torah. It's in the 16th century that traced a lot of old Franciscan marginalia that were, frankly, erotica in the center of the Bible was the holiness, and the marginalia on the exteriors. I showed the Kaufman Mishneh Torah, took them and made them PG-13. And so it was fun. And then I worked at the Jewish Museum for several years. I worked at the Israel Museum. Currently, I work with Beit HaTfutzot, the diaspora. It was formerly Diaspora Museum, now Jewish people. Thank you. And it's the mosaic. And I absolutely love material culture because I think it teaches us so much to have visual culture in addition to our text. And to have text and context is so important because, for example, I'm going to need one sheet, although I'm pretty good. I'll give you one example. One of my teachers was showing us in Spain, showing the synagogue during Musaf, that there were people in this, about who gets counted if you're in the synagogue to say Amen. And they were spitting. He said, they're spitting in the synagogue. Can you imagine this? Why would they be doing that? And he didn't understand that Spanish courtyards, that they were outside in the ambulatory, and the question is, which is a great question, are you still at shul if you're standing outside, gossiping right outside, and doing other things, meaning like he was spitting. But if you don't have the context of architecture, of art history, of the textiles, like what we were talking about with wool and linen, if you don't realize how our material culture relates to some of our textual traditions, I think we're missing a huge category of. That's kind of my history on not even 1 foot, 1 toe. Since it's Parshat Shekalim, I thought it'd be nice to kind of look at some recent coinage, some ancient coinage, but we're going to do some Torah first. You can look on the back. You're going to see how some of these things play into the text on the front. So you see the coins on the back, text on the front. So, yes, you're right on time. I won't. When was money created? Anybody, take a guess. Wow. I said that today. I did, but money. Thank you. Okay. So that is shekel, shakul. So now, what is shakul? Anybody, Hebrew speakers? Yes, lishkol is weight. So shekel is actually, some give it to Babylonian shekel is wheat. Babylonian shekel is wheat. I don't think so. I think it's shakul, and shikul is this weighing and this balancing, which is how you would balance the quality of the kesef. Now, what's kesef? Well, that's kesef is both silver and money. So now, why kesef? Oh, good, you guys are great learners. Why kesef and not zahav? It's easier to purify and to also weigh out, because you do gold. It can have any number of weights or qualities, whereas kesef you can really refine it out, and not for coinage necessarily, but for building and for value, to ensure its value. What was more precious in the biblical period? This is a trick question. Silver or gold? Silver. How do we know? Awesome. So Shir Shirim, I didn't put this. It says, I will make you spangles. Do you remember this? I will make you a necklace with spangles of gold with endings of silver. Which tells you, so now you could say gold is more, either more plentiful or just wasn't the same didn't have the same weight. Now, I think this is fascinating because, here in our day and age of the malleability, gold versus silver, what is the gold standard? I mean, we could go here back to even Nixon, that period, as to what is the currency and what is the value of money. And as we're, I was thinking about this, is there any synagogue who's doing half shekel in Bitcoin? And this question of, well, that's exactly right. And that's, I think, really this question about the fungibility of money, kesef, and its interpretation. So when it says, thou shalt pay money, Dr. Lieber was my Rabbi, he edited the Chumash, and we fought on this one throughout school, which is, it's not money, it's not coinage either until this 7th century is about where we think we have first coins, and I'm going to show you some of those symbols. So now let's go back all the way to Genesis. So I think you're learning. I try to try to lay out some different Torah. So certainly value, certainly important, but we have the first transaction in the Torah in this verse 15 and 16 of Genesis chapter 23. Would anybody, and I love the Hebrew side, the English, it's not my favorite, anybody, 15 and 16, this is from Genesis. Anybody a good reader in the thus, the, thou, the language? English is fine. So, what is he trying to say? Anybody remember this section? This is, this is Ephron, exactly. And he says, come on, it's fine. What's 400 shekel of silver between you and me? Oh, right? Oh, come on, it's no big deal. It was $27.94 for the 2 pizzas. Don't worry about it, right? I mean, something like, oh, that shawl, yeah, it cost me $69. I got it on sale at TJ Maxx. But don't worry. It's fine. You lost it. It's okay. You know exactly what she's looking for. Exactly, $69.27. So what does Abraham do? And I love this. Ooh. Now, verse 16, somebody. Verse 16. Vayishma Avraham el Ephron. So, and what's 16 in the English? Okay. So a couple things are happening here. Yishma Avraham. What is Shema Yisrael? Hero Israel or understand? Got it. He really understood what Ephron was saying, which was, it's 400 shekel, and I want you to just say it's wink wink. I get to be generous. And Avraham knew at that point, it is receipt time. I need something tachlis. I need something that is material. Now, anybody see in the Hebrew between the first line and the second line, Ephron and Ephron? Rashi goes crazy on this. It's just a great midrash. Vav. It's missing the Vav. Why? He didn't have any seichel. Ephron was trying to remove and get light. So he says in the text, you see that the first Ephron, Vayishkal Ephron, Le-Ephron, the second one without the Vav doesn't have any, not straight. Took out the Vav of the Ephron because, no, Iparon, anyway, this is a different, that's just me. Couldn't be more straight. Here, I'll show you. First Ephron. Second Ephron is without a Vav. Rashi says it's a classic Rashi, right? Why is there no Vav? Because he had no backbone. Spineless. He was shifty. He was. Well, there's also something to Avraham giving this exchange. And I'll go back to the half shekel. And this is a problem, I think, when I get a little politicky, synagogue politicky. It's a problem when I say, give what you want, membership, it doesn't really matter. Just do what you can, pay as you go. There's got to be a baseline standard. There's got to be some sort of standard, like the gold standard that says this money has value. I was reading some of these books in preparation for this and seeing the Weimar Republic when they had the Deutschmarks in the 20s. I'm talking about room after room of these bills that simply were not rooted in their own legitimacy. And Maimonides actually says this. He says, when is a king out of power is when his cash has no currency. And so this right now, in this particularly volatile age, I love that we're doing Shabbat Shekelim and even got talking about money on Shabbos, but this kind of volatility about what that real and fair value is of money as this Bitcoin fluctuation goes on and these alternative currencies is very much what Abraham bench. I gotta love it, our daddy. Because he says, 400 shekel kesef over lesocher. What is that? Current money. See, I don't think English makes any sense. Current money with the merchant. What? Does it make any sense? I don't know. I speak English quite well. No. I know the Hebrew. It doesn't make any sense. Do you know the Hebrew already, though? From the English. Good. With the merchant. Good. Current money with the merchant, which is? Melt it, smelt it, and stamp it. And values, I was reading, silver per shekel could range from huge variation in quantities and qualities. Like, do you remember the Kennedy quarter? So I don't know why, for Passover. Either was an Israel bond, I don't know anybody, Israel bond, right? And then you would get those, and then you would just watch them as I was getting older, that copper value. Do you know what I'm talking about? The quarters and like every time it was just lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And I was like, oh, I get this. This is inflate. Oh, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't the same as when I first got that coin. I thought it was because I was little. My dad's like, no, it's actually lighter and lighter. But that is possible. You have another idea of what over lesocher is? Yes, do you agree? That's because it exchanges money, or what? At the merchant. Right. Over, passing for the merchant. As it passes, so yeah, it's good. I don't think that's what over lesocher. It makes sense, but here, understood, and thank you. It's a wonderful attempt, but got to bend pretty far to get over lesocher. What are they trying to do? Another phrase, point of the realm. So there is to this, depending on the realm. So if you had the Habsburg, it was double-headed. We're going to get to that. If it's a Greek coinage, this fleur de lis, or this lily, right here on the back, that's why the pomegranate shift, that was Greek coinage. So they were trying to make references, even in the modern, but also ancient, to, well, we'll talk about that in a second. What do you think market, at current market value? That's over lesocher. Market value. Which means I am going to insure, or Ephron, I'm putting the vav where there is no vav. You understand? I am ensuring that it is a fair deal. When they give me, I could just, come on, cash, stock options, all these different ways. Oh my God, any basketball fans here? Nobody. Okay, I'll skip it. But you pay a guy $35 million, little Dank's got over 17 years, but it's like this and that, and I have no idea who's rich, who's poor. I have no idea in Orange County. Because everybody, or anywhere for that matter, because there's no standard of economy. And what's so brilliant about Abraham, especially with Machpelah, and I'm not going to go in a political direction that this was inherent, Hebron, this was where we were, this is land that was purchased, we got the receipt, but that there is a standard, And that money, so even this coinage that you're talking about, we're back way too early, if it's 7th century before the Common Era, that there were actually coinage here. We have to wait much later. Oh, here I didn't give you this is in 2nd Chronicles. So here, 2nd Chronicles, which has the 2nd Chronicles and Daniel, are the only 2 books that have Aramaic usage. So you're hearing it, and you'll hear I'm going to read the Hebrew, and you try to pick out, you don't have to know any Hebrew for this, pick out the Aramaic in this. Is it okay to use the mic? Is it working? Is that helpful? Pace okay? Okay. ויתנו לעובדות בית האלוהים, זהב כיכרים 5,000, וארדקונים ריבו, וכסף כיכרים 10,000, נחושת ריבו 8,000. What was the Aramaic word there? Ardchonim. But you said it in Mifta Israelit. It's a Sasanian term. Ardkon, right? It's Babylonian, or even in that Sasanian. Yes, pre-Persian, right? A different term that is justifying coinage for the first time. And this is the first time that we see it here, because notice what they're giving you. It's a gold of 5,000 talents and 10,000 darics. It's not that he's giving those complimentary. That is a translation of what? Chameshet alafim. I'm sorry. That zahav kikarim chameshet alafim v'ardkoni ribo it equals 5,000 talents, is 10,000 darics. So you can do now, for the first time in the Bible, an equivalency as to what a talent of silver weighed out to ardkonim. Ardkon? Yeah, that darik is an English term. Ardkon. And I've never heard it before either. They translate it because they don't have that initial Sasanian coinage that we can now look with numismatists and see these were actually what the coins were, this is what their value were, and they were relative before paper money. They were actually weight in these either copper, silver, or gold. And so I just wanted to show you in these texts, this is how money, shkalim, has kind of progressed through the Bible. Now, for me, in the modern state of Israel, what are we trying to do in Israel? We've recreated language, we've recreated tarbut, culture, and we're also recreating our own finance system. And so what I want to do now is flip and look at some of the early shekels and the later shekel. So let's now look 68C. Now, what is 68C? Let's just, Common Era 68. What happened around destruction of the temple? By the Romans, yeah? And therefore, 68 was the beginning of a rebellion. This was not Bar Kokhba, that's coming in 132, but this is the beginning of the end, so to speak. And what signals rebellion more than anything? This is why I think Bitcoin's so fascinating. Coinage. When you create alternative currencies that allow you to create this, it's a really rebellious move. There's good reason that the mint is the mint, and they're very uncomfortable with this kind of alternative currency. This is alternative currencies. And what do they do? It's genius. Look now back at the 1985 shekel, okay? So you see the lily, and I love this. Anytime in our history they say, well, this was a motif that was found on the temple, and that is why they used it for the shekel. I'm not buying it for a second. Because how many motifs were there in the... You've got acanthus leaves, you have lilies, you have everything in the temple. It's got every formula of Roman architecture that you could find. Why the lily? Why do you think? If you want to make your coinage real, what do? You make it analogous to other coinage, and Greek coinage and Roman coinage both use this lily as a standard. And so the shekel here, and also you can see the difference between the top shekel and the bottom. What's the difference? Do you see, well, you don't speak cuneiform Hebrew. Do you see on the top shekel they've used very much a script from 1980, and then from 1980 they used that kind of calligraphic script. The only Hebrew that we had extant were some of these. This was a lot before archaeology was happening in Israel. And early on, it was actually in the 60s, they were really starting to discover more and more ancient examples in mosaics of Hebrew that would show you this more. You see this earlier. This is how ancient Hebrew looked. This shekel from 1985. And so here, even that shekel coin from 1980, they're still using, this is the art history of the shekel, that they're still using calligraphic script, but now, since we've had more excavation and more discovery, we know what shekel really represented, and it came way back from that 68. So that's one thing I find brilliant in the coinage of Israel, is how they've actually chadesh yemenu kekedem. They've renewed it by going even more ancient than it was even from 1980 to 85. And that's because of archaeology. Second, do you see these, this is what I think is genius about the Hasmoneans as they started to make their fight. 68, you see this, what do you see on the right? That is a threefold pomegranate. But why do you think, now compare it down to the 85 coin, what do you think the Hasmoneans were really trying to do here? And it's a classic Hasmonean move if you think about Hanukkah and who these Jewish Greeks were. Exactly. So what they've done is they've made a hybrid between the pomegranate, which is a symbol of the temple, is a symbol of Israel, right? We have in the bells. Anybody remember from the Israel Museum, they said they have the only extant object of the Rimon? Has anybody been to the Israel Museum? There's a small ivory. Sorry. But they thought that they had found the original Rimon. But it's clear from Shemot, from Truma, and all Vayak el Pekudei as well, we know exactly what these objects may have looked like. So what they did, I wanted to show you here, was ancient coin was taking a Greek symbol and turning it into the Rimon, which is a Jewish value. The amphora on the left is another brilliant reinterpretation of Greek and Roman coinage. What do you think the amphora, which means just a nice bowl, what do you think the Greek version was for an amphora? What is the bowl for? Urn for? In Roman. The chalice of wine. It's actually wine, precious value. Kiddush wine was not that big of a deal back to these guys. So in fact what this was is the barley omer. So this is the omer. This is the cup that you would bring, because you would bring omer tnufa to the temple, and the barley. So when you see on other coins, you've seen it many times. Here in Israel, do you see this on the left and the right of the do you see it? Everybody thinks it's wheat. It's barley. Because barley, the omer was semolina wheat, but it was the barley that they would bring to the temple. Anybody know the difference between wheat and barley? No? Okay. So, by the way, great Korean restaurants, always barley. A little thicker, it's a little heavier, it's quantifiable, it's got better shekel than wheat. Shekel weight, it's got this more quantifiable weight. Semolina flour is more like gold. So I'm just making a comparison here between gold and silver and barley and wheat. Shekel in Babylonian. So, but also shekel in Babylonian was wheat. Shekel, but I don't buy it. It's really kel, that wheat. So is it kel? I don't think so. Shekel is really weights and measures, just weights. I found that to be a stretch, that initial one. Like I said, I wanted to give you some alternative theories. And barley, se'orah, the barley, is actually what you would convert. And let's just, for a second, guys, what would we do in the temple? For our pilgrimage temples, are you supposed to bring your herds, your flocks, right? And your first fruits. And if it's too much to schlep because you're so far, what can you do? You can convert it into money. And so many would convert it into these cups of barley. And this is how you would measure. How much was your measurement? So it's a manifestation of, and this is why the original shekel used this. I don't think people got it. I'm just making this up. From 1980 to 85, they really used this brilliant 68, this barley, because everybody knew this is what they were bringing to the temple. Why? 68. Why? Why is this powerful in 68? That's right. Now let's go to the Bar Kochba coin. Temple is destroyed. What do you see on the left? That's correct. It's a representation of the temple. So now we've moved from this is what you bring to the temple to your money is the temple. I mean, it's pretty radical if you think about it. Like, if I had a quarter that had my Torah on it, I'd, like, what, I'm going to buy, like, nachos with this? Like, it's the temple. But it was this representation of what the value was, and it's also something that's lost. This is why extant art history is so important. This is real, tangible material I can ask, and not, was the temple standing? Was it not standing? Which is why, frankly, as an art historian, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. I know that, right? You know this line about like the Exodus, did it happen or not? The first temple, do you get that? Absence of evidence is not evidence that it was never there. I have no evidence of the first temple. I have the descriptions. I have the descriptions in the Chumash, in the Bible for sure. But what I don't have is Boaz and Yachin. These two guys, these two columns. Everybody makes them into these little lilies, Egyptian lilies, because he's from Tyre, and Tyre, the guy who built it. I'm for sure going back to other temples of Ashurbanipal. Do you remember these kind of hybrid monsters, right, that have the beard and the wings and the bull? Why would you name? Of course that's what the names were. But we can't have such a hybrid creature, on the front of our temple, because why? We're holier than thou. You shouldn't have any images of anything up and below. I have this extant evidence of other temples at this period. I'm just giving you an example of why it's so valuable to have these extant. Second point here. So there's the temple, and it says in the third year of the rebuilding of our temple that they hadn't rebuilt it yet. What's here on the flip side? Anybody take a guess? And you got to think holidays. So they've both referred back to the pomegranates. Do you see how the design is similar to the fleur-de-lis? You see that? Fleur-de-lis, that lilies, and pomegranate, but it's not pomegranate. What do you think? Take a guess. Correct. Sukkot. It's Sukkot. Do you see it? Do you see the species? The palm frond, you don't? The lozenge is that palm frond, and then you have the myrtle and the willow. And then you have this etrog down here at the bottom. So what is that? What does he think? Why do you think this Bar Kokhba and his people really wanted you to have this symbol, that one is the temple on the front and the other is the lulav in the back? And what was the lulav post-temple for Jews? What did it represent? Okay, metaphorically, it's the spine of our people. Where am I pointing? Towards Jerusalem. But where am I? N'importe. I could be anywhere, and I am still worshiping. For me, this is like the Beit HaMikdash HaKatan. It's not a synagogue, but in a coin, they have given me that value of the temple. And it's not mourning, by the way, not mourning loss. It's, hey, this is my ark of art. Do you see the ark behind there? Now, there are people who argue, is that the Torah in there? Do you see the mini ark on the left-hand side? Do you see these little dots? By the way, I could show you other Roman glass. 1st century CE that actually has 12 scrolls. And I have 2 lions with birds that I believe were separate. That's a different talk about that. The lions of Judah were originally these hybrid, fantastic creatures. And in fact, cherubim, the kruvim on the ark, were not these pretty little winged like, ooh. No. There's one guy, he's my favorite, but it's a little too racy. He thinks that they're erotically engaged on top of the ark. It's this union between God and humanity. That's the representation of Torah. Here, we don't know what's going on inside, but we know on the front end you have this temple. On the back end, you have this opportunity to say, this is my value. I am now still operating Judaism. We're going to be okay without this. And the harvest of the... Right. And so they be translated. So in that pilgrimage, so finish that sentence. Right. So that in that harvest, so it makes perfect sense that after your harvest, you would turn it into this coinage. And on the front end is your temple. But here's my question to you. Where's Bar Kokhba? Trying to rebuild the temple? How is he rebuilding the country? it's holy. Well, yeah, not so mass, but certainly a rebellion. And actually, what's fascinating is you can see the success and failure of the revolt by the production of this coinage, and you see how it trails off within. They use the same. So then let me do finally. So then they move from this barley urn down to the fleur-de-lis. They use the script that is even more ancient. And so now, as we have Shekel Hadash, I have a different talk about Orientalism. And you see on the left, you have the Arabic, the original coins from Israel coming out, modern. Not Shekel Hadash, but the ancient coins. The use of Arabic and Arabic script was so much more powerful, more prevalent. It was just, Arabic was just more of a part of the original Israeli material culture, coinage and signage. It's changed radically. It actually changed, this, not from 48. So I was reading, take a date, well, first separation of the Kotel territory, and that provides a throne that they're coming up rock, not at the time. We're praying at the wall. Then after those riots, separation from Arabic, not back then, lands and Christian Arabs were living in closer quarters before 29. There's a clear shift. I'm trying to prove that orthographically. That's a different subject, but I'm trying to prove that in the language. Like look in Tel Aviv building. You can see it in 1910, 1919. The use of Arabic script, even to characterize Hebrew letters. And then after 29, it goes straight to this block. Do you see the shekel on the left? That's not actually trying to mimic Torah text. It's trying to mimic Berlin typeface. That's such a powerful typeface. Shochen. Shochen department stores is another subject. There's so much art that is expressed through these coins. And what is this new shekel? Shekel Hadash. I love that. Shekel Hadash, they've had like 7 different iterations of the Shekel Hadash. I always go and I say, I have a new shekel that's not in current currency. Always trying to just. What's this? The shekel. This is a katuf shekel Hadash. He says, "What are you talking about? This is such an old. This is an old 20. Why are you giving me?" It says right here, shekel Hadash, which is Chadesh Yamenu Kekedem. That as money changes, currencies change, and I that even in our virtual currency, that we must have some excess. It's minting, that quality that Abraham was talking about, fairness. That's my little drush on. Yeah. Well, but you can begin to see. So this is in the year. This is in the first year of. On the left, I believe. On the right, it is in the first year of our revolt. They're challenging the Roman coinage, and this is. Yeah. To free Yerushalayim. So this is when they were under the year of our, yeah. Okay, so it's married. Lecherut Yerushalayim. not sure. Sham. I have my research back. I have my books back at school. But the irony, the temple wasn't even destroyed at that point. So, because I know that one side of the coin is in the it's the second year of our revolt. I think it was the second year of our revolt was the backside, and then. So it also quantifies what year they are in their rebellion. The Bar Kokhba, they had 3 bintings of this. It lasted about 3.5 years. Extent evidence. The horde. They actually found, it's amazing. And then they also had a little extra cash in there. And they had to preserve it. Not just these. Not the loaves. Toasted barley.
So it's not like bales.
No, they're not bringing like that. And you actually know this from the book of Ruth. She's threshing, where they have their moment when on the Boaz. That's when they're doing the roast. That's the ancient shekel. I thought it was shekel from the. God? So you're saying it's not shin. So that's. I know that they used at Spitzer when after he did the archaeology evidence. This came from a coinage in down the 16th century. They were coming down the port, trying to get back to that port. It doesn't take shekel. No? Right. Yud Hey Vav. Oh. Yes. We're trying to say, hey, here, take notes. Because they're worthless. You? I have my Asimon. I kept my phone coin. Yeah, that bitui doesn't work anymore. Nafalet asimon. Right. Nafalet asimon. Well, guys, a real pleasure. I don't need to keep you any longer. It's joy. If you like this kind of stuff, I'm happy